This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. Yesterday, a new film premiered called The Internet's Own Boy. I want to play another clip from The Internet's Own Boy, the story of Aaron Swartz. In this extended clip, we hear from Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web. Aaron himself, Aaron's friend Matt Stoller, Harvard professor Lawrence Lessig, who founded the Creative Commons and was a mentor to Aaron, and Cory Doctorow, an author, activist, and friend of Aaron's.
I think Aaron was trying to make the world work. He was trying to fix it. So he was a bit ahead of his time.
It is shocking to think that the accountability is so lax that they don't even have sort of basic statistics about how big the spying program is. And if the answer is, oh, we're spying on so many people we can't possibly even count them, then that's an awful lot of people, right? It would be one thing if they said, look, you know, we know the number of telephones we're spying on, we don't know exactly how many real people that corresponds to, but they just came back and said, we can't give you a number at all. That's pretty, I mean, it's scary is what it is.
Well, that's scary.
You know, they put incredible pressure on him, took away all of the money he had made. They, you know, threatened to take away his physical freedom. Why'd they do it, you know? I mean, well, why are they going after whistleblowers? You know, why are they going after people who tell the truth about all sorts of things? I mean, from the banks to the, you know, to war, to just sort of government transparency.
Secrecy serves those who are already in power, and we are living in an era of secrecy that coincides with an era where the government is doing also a lot of things that are probably illegal and unconstitutional. So those two things are not coincidences.
It's very clear that this technology has been developed not for small countries overseas, but right here for use in the United States by the U.S. government. The problem with the spying program is it's this sort of long, slow expansion, you know, going back to the Nixon administration, right? Obviously, it became big after 9/11 under George W. Bush, and Obama has continued to expand it, and the problems have slowly grown worse and worse. But there's never been this moment you can point to, say, okay, we need to galvanize opposition today because today is when it matters. Instead, it's mattered for a long time.
So he was just doing what he thought was right, to produce a world that was better.
I guess the one thing that I would say to people who are feeling that, you know, for whom the black dog is visiting, is that Aaron's problems didn't get solved when he died. Even now, as we try to honor Aaron's legacy, it's us, it's not him. The one thing that being alive tells you is that you have the power to make things better.
That's an excerpt of The Internet's Own Boy, the story of Aaron Swartz. We are broadcasting from Park City, Utah, where the Sundance Film Festival is underway, spending the hour looking at the life of this young internet freedom activist, Aaron Swartz. It's 1 year since he tragically took his own life. Now a new film about him has premiered. The Internet's Own Boy premiered yesterday. We're joined by Brian Knappenberger, the director of the film. He also directed We Are Legion, the story of the hacktivists, and we're joined by attorney Elliot Peters, who represented Aaron. Welcome you both to Democracy Now! Why did you make the film, Brian?
Well, I was powerfully moved by Aaron's story on so many levels. I think that some of his early life is a very poignant chronology of internet history. His contributions to RSS, Creative Commons, being co-founder of Reddit, it all just suggests somebody with this vision you mentioned earlier, that this kind of worldview at a very young age. But I think what happened after he sold Reddit is particularly interesting to me, because he turned his back on startup culture. You know, we have a culture, a startup culture, that's about creating, you know, companies and selling them, and he turned his back on it.
Now explain. A lot of people might say when he sold Reddit, he was one of the founders of Reddit.
Right. So he started a site with Y Combinator called Infogami. Infogami merged with Reddit, and so he became one of three what they call co-founders of Reddit. And when Condé Nast bought Reddit, Aaron became a 19-year-old, probably more or less. I mean, we don't know how much he made, but he was a very rich 19-year-old. And that startup culture didn't sit well with him. I don't think it merged well with his sort of sense of social justice and the kind of political areas that he wanted to go in. You know, and let's face it, startup culture often says they want to change the world, but it becomes a kind of slogan of sorts. It's really about build to flip, you know, create a company, sell it to a big corporation, and do the whole thing again. I think Aaron, at that part of his life was really interesting to me because he shifted to using his skills and energy towards political organizing, towards causes that he really cared about.
Elliot Peters, explain when you got involved in Aaron Swartz's life. I mean, you represented Google, you represented Lance Armstrong. Talk about what happened with Aaron.
I got involved with Aaron after the government filed what's called a superseding indictment against him, and he was charged with 13 felonies, including wire fraud and violations of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. It could have put him in jail for an absurdly long time. And I met Aaron in the kind of the middle of 2012. I took over his case from some other lawyers that were handling it, and started getting ready to defend it and try it. And I got to know Aaron, and I got to know his dad, and I got to know even better the U.S. government that was chasing him.
All right. So talk about the pressure that Aaron was under. Talk about the 35 years of prison he faced, the $1 million fine, the plea bargain offers that were being made, and Aaron's attitude towards it all.
Well, just the preface to that is, in my view, Aaron was innocent. I don't believe Aaron committed a crime, and I think that we could have successfully defended him at trial. But he was under tremendous pressure, facing 13 felony counts, and they'd added charges to ratchet up his exposure to jail. The prosecutor insisted that in any plea or any agreement in the case, Aaron would have to go to jail, and that the government would seek jail time. And I said to him, the proper disposition of this case is to tell Aaron to do community service in Brooklyn by teaching high school students in the public schools in Brooklyn about computer programming, and after he's done some of that, dismiss the case. And they said, absolutely not. He needs to plead guilty to 13 felonies, and he needs to go to jail. And the kind of person that Aaron was, he never struck me as a very good candidate for federal prison. I think that the thought of that was very frightening to him. I thought it was tremendously cruel and unfair. And given my line of work, I was very eager to fight them and defend Aaron because he deserved it.
Talk about the prosecutor, what he prosecuted before.
Well, he was a computer crimes prosecutor, or so he said.
This is Michael Heyman.
His name is Steve Hyman in Boston. And as I said in Brian's terrific film, you're not much of a computer crimes prosecutor if you don't have a computer crime to prosecute. And when MIT referred this case to this task force, which included a Secret Service agent, Hyman immediately got involved. He took over the case. They turned it into an investigation, and they tried to turn it into the biggest case they could for their own purposes, with no regard, in my mind, to what was fair or even any appreciation of who Aaron Swartz was. I'm not even sure that they cared.
You warned the prosecutor that they could break Aaron.
He was aware that Aaron, there was a certain fragility about Aaron, but they were trying to put pressure on Aaron. They were trying in a different way to break Aaron. I'm not saying that they were trying to cause him to commit suicide, but they were trying to bring him to his knees so that he would knuckle under to the pressure that they were putting on him. And they were aware of that. They were intentionally maximizing the pressure on this young man, and to what end, I really don't understand.
The main prosecutor in the case, Ortiz, said stealing is stealing whether you use a computer command or a crowbar, and whether you take documents, data, or Ortiz, or dollars, said Carmen Ortiz.
So facile, so ignorant, so stupid. Aaron wasn't a thief. He was making a political statement. They charged him with fraud as if he was stealing something for profit. He wasn't. He was an authorized user of the MIT computer network. He didn't hack into anything. He logged in as any guest on the MIT campus could. He certainly downloaded more of JSTOR than they wanted, but it wasn't to steal anything. These are a bunch of old academic journals that exist now for the purposes of increasing people's knowledge. The idea to call Aaron a thief is just pandering to the lowest instincts of people, of viewers or listeners of Carmen Ortiz's press conference.
We just played Carmen Ortiz, the U.S. Attorney in Boston, who Steve Hyman worked for.
Correct.
We just played a clip of Aaron talking about his philosophy and talking about JSTOR and being concerned about the disparity of resources, intellectual resources, for people, say, in India or versus in the United States. Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a huge concern of his, this walling up of the world's information behind a paywall. You
are one of the people involved in the February 11th action that will be taking place. Explain what it is.
Well, we're leading up to some actions. But it's part of a group called Stop Watching Us that was formed to protest NSA overreach and this kind of surveillance state that's been revealed to us by Edward Snowden. And so
amazing to listen to him a year before Edward Snowden talk about NSA surveillance.
Well, when we found that clip of Aaron, it was chilling, actually. We found Aaron talking quite a bit about NSA overreach, the amount of searching that they were doing, the amount of people that they were surveilling at that point. And those clips come about a year and a week or so before the main Snowden revelations. And he even says in the clip, there's never been a moment when we really mobilize that really sparks action, and he just didn't live to see that moment.
Well, I want to thank you both for being with us and for your film, Brian Knappenberger. The film is called, his first film, We Are Legion, the story of the hacktivist, but this film is called The Internet's Own Boy, the story of Aaron Swartz and Elliot Peters, Aaron's attorney. That does it for our broadcast. Democracy Now!